Okay, so before we talk about inferior athletes like Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and Aaron Judge this week, Anthony, you were around there Monday. Wax poetic for like a minute about the greatest athlete of this generation, Joey M.F. Chestnuts.
You know what? You keep your Michael Jordans and your Serena Williams and your Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal. I'm watching a living, breathing legend literally just tail up the competition while choking someone out who ran.
That's the best part. Michael Jordan is not getting choked at the free throw line and then making a shot immediately after, Anthony.
Yeah, literally that chokehold literally cost him maybe 5 or 6 hot dogs. And which is number one. And number two, he did it with a leg injury too.
Yes, he did it with a broken leg. We can talk all day about this, but I need to get to it. My name is Steve Rabinowitz.
And my name is Jay Kaplan.
And I am an admirer of greatness. That is Anthony Strait.
He is just a humble man. We are welcoming you to the MLB Mid-Season and NBA Free Agent Madness edition of On the Sports Lines. Okay, time for the day that the three of us dreaded for a little while, talking about our baseball team's pretty good seasons and dread about the fall off that we're about to see at the mid-season point once we have actual video proof that the teams are good. Also, NBA free agency awards and Anthony's favorite subject over the past 7 to 14 days, the fall of the Brooklyn Nets. Let's start with college football. We're not even in media day. Let's just get to it. When I'm older and 4 of my nieces and nephews grow up, the other 2 are older, so they understand this, forget about that. They're really going to be confused when they see the same geographical conference, Michigan and Ohio State here, and UCLA and USC all over there. Man, social studies is going to be so much different in 2021. All right, or in 2022. UCLA and USC are the 15th and 16th schools in the Big Ten after they applied and got accepted quicker than I could finish the sentence. The Big Ten is now the Big 16. The Pac-12 is now the Pac-10. I hate math. Jay, what's your take on all of this?
All right, guys, strap in. Here comes the rant. Come along for the ride. My thoughts on this are the same as they were when we talked about Texas and Oklahoma leaving the Big 12 for the SEC last year. I absolutely 1,000% hate this. It is absolutely awful for college football. It's an utterly selfish move by USC and UCLA based completely on money. They couldn't give less of a frack that they're screwing over the other schools and putting the Pac-12 at the brink of extinction. USC and UCLA coming aboard gives the Big Ten some of the strongest in football, USC, and basketball, UCLA brands in the country, and will alter the negotiations and help the Big Ten monumentally increase their current $55 million output that they currently provide to their members' schools. I mean, check this. The Big Ten was only a few weeks from announcing a new media rights deal likely to pay the league more than $1 billion annually, and that is billion with a B. They were in the process of reviewing the final pitches from the likes of NBC, CBS, ESPN, and Amazon Prime to join Fox as the conference's football rights holders. Now, with the addition of these 2 well-known and very successful programs in the nation's number 2 media market, the league will likely reopen those negotiations. The Big Ten and its media partners will now own 72 conference games, up from 63, and anywhere from 30 to 40 non-conference games, up from 25 to 35. The league already had some of the nation's highest rated college football games, but now there's the potential for USC and UCLA to face the likes of Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State and other Big Ten schools in high-stakes regular season matchups. Here's one of the things that irks the hell out of me. Not that the Big Ten, in the wake of Texas and Oklahoma bolting for the NCC, quietly put a committee together to look into expanding the league. They kind of had to do that. I don't begrudge that. No, what irks the hell out of me is that now that it's coming out from multiple sources is that USC and UCLA both reached out to the Big Ten first. Apparently, the Big Ten's talk with USC and UCLA grew more serious over the past couple of months, those sources said. And a trustee at a Big Ten school, who decided to remain anonymous, said that the member schools were asked to look into the feasibility of adding USC and UCLA. And from that point to the point where UCLA submitted and were approved for admission to the conference happened at warp speed. The Trojans and the Bruins are tied to the Pac-12 until that media rights deal ends for the Pac-12. But on August 1, 2024, a little over 2 years from now, two of the Pac-12's longest tenured programs are going to be members of the Big Ten, which leads me to the other thing that irks the hell out of me. It has how this move devalues the Rose Bowl. Another Big Ten source said in the wake of these moves, here's the quote, "We're literally nuking the Rose Bowl. What's the point of the Rose Bowl if the whole point is the playoff?" You freaking kidding me? Granted, whether it was for the Bowl Coalition, you guys remember that short-lived scenario, the BCS or the CFP, the Rose Bowl had stood its ground and continued to exert its influence over college football's postseason, even costing the sport winner-take-all games in 94 and 97. The Big Ten and the Pac-12 did everything they could to ensure that the Rose Bowl remained first among equals for time slot and ratings. But now, with USC and UCLA moving to the Big Ten, the granddaddy of them all has lost a lot of its luster. The Trojans and Bruins both play their home games in the Rose Bowl, and the Trojans have repped the Pac-12 in the bowl game more than any team. But once the Trojans and the Bruins are playing regular season home games against the Wolverines and the Buckeyes and the Nittany Lions, the Rose Bowl is no longer the Rose Bowl, and that plain sucks for college football. Chris Vanini's a college football writer for The Athletic, and he wrote a really great piece on this realignment about how the Big Ten adding USC and UCLA further ruins the charm we love about college football. And how he ended that piece is a perfect way for me to end this rant. Here's the quote. "It's clear now that a lot of the charm that draws us to college football is on its way out, all in the name of finding every last dollar. So pour one out for the 2007 season, for Boise State, Oklahoma, for split national titles, for Appalachian State, Michigan, for the Rose Bowl. I'll still be watching. So will millions of others. The sport isn't going to die. It just won't be what so many of us fell in love with in the first place, and a lot of fans will be left behind." Couldn't have said it better myself. This sucks.
You know what? I'll piggyback off what you said, Jay, about the Rose Bowl. The Rose Bowl has had a heavier influence than the college football playoff. Remember, there's been a couple of years where the Rose Bowl has been stand pat on playing New Year's Day in a traditional time slot, and that's actually caused the semifinals to be played either New Year's Eve or even later on in the day if it wasn't if the Rose Bowl was not in that rotation.
Yep.
So that's number one thing with this happening, that how it affects the significance that the Rose Bowl have on college football. Number two, we're only about maybe a month away from a year ago where the Big Ten, ACC, and the Pac-12 had announced this alliance, this coalition after Texas and Oklahoma announced they were moving to the SEC in a couple of years, 2025. But we see how this alliance is turning out. It's basically cherry picking teams from one another in another conference. But it's all about the money. I think we all know that money is driving college football more than anything. But it has an impact on college basketball too, obviously, with USC, UCLA being one of the traditional college basketball powerhouses in the country. But what it does, it just basically pretty much increases the value of the Big Ten. But what happens to the Pac-12 at this point? Because now we're looking at a conference that is pretty much on its thing. I thought it was silly when Rutgers moved to the Big Ten, because I thought, because I thought, like, wait a minute, you're in the New Jersey metropolitan area, and you're gonna be playing in a stronger conference where now you barely win games as it is. On top of the fact that now you're taking kids across the country for regular season games instead of maybe 2-3 hour drives from some of the traditional Big East schools at the time. So I thought that was nuts. But now you got a team from California, which will be kind of fun seeing USC playing in a snowy big house or playing in Ohio State in late October or early November, having to fly across the country for a regular season game. I mean, it's pretty clear that money drove this decision. And like I said, I think you said pretty much everything I can say, Jay, is that it's kind of a selfish decision on the part of USC and UCLA, because now the rest of the conference is being hung out to dry, and now we just don't know what exactly is going to happen with the other 10 teams in that conference.
Yeah. Well, so you guys, I want to talk eventually about the real big issue of the whole thing, which is where college football was headed, but UCLA and USC started hitting the gas pedal towards it, and that's a whole separate college football area where that becomes the main thing, almost like that becomes the major leagues and everybody else becomes the minor leagues. Is it terrible for college football? Absolutely. It's not the greatest thing in the world. And I think that's going to lose the playing field even more. However, money-wise, by far the right decision for many reasons. Number one, when you look at all of the networks of the conferences, SEC network is very strongly funded by ESPN, making money. Big Ten network is going to have a lot more distribution, going to make a lot more money. And that's the reason why they got Rutgers. They needed the New York market. That's the reason why they're going to get the LA market now with UCLA and USC. Big 12, ESPN has a nice little commitment to it. ACC, ESPN, it's not a great deal, but ESPN has a commitment to it. Did you know that the Pac-12 network existed? Yes, it does, but it's barely available. Not even available on this Altice one, which has every other fucking channel available.
Yeah, I don't think I get it on Fios either.
Yeah, you don't get it on Fios. It has a terrible distribution. It has a terrible distribution deal, and is one of the first reasons why USC and UCLA were like, the Pac-12 has been declining value for years. They unfortunately, though, are the first ones that made the first step to go. And there was a report by the LA Times that UCLA was up to the point where they have right now a $102.8 million deficit, and they were going to lose another 30 athletic programs because of the money that they couldn't have made. Again, yeah, for college football purists, this is terrible, but business-wise, everything screams to this correct decision. And that's why the rest of the Pac-12 is thinking of either going to the Big 12 or merging with the Big 12. Pac-12 is thinking of having an alliance with the ACC network-wise. I just want to know, and I think, again, this is a bold topic for all of us in the near future. When does this stop?
Yeah.
And where does college football go from here? It's nice that you were talking about UCLA basketball-wise to the Big Ten. If any of these moves were ever done for college basketball, I would be very shocked. This is football-centric and football-oriented, and that actually also devalues college basketball.
Rabbi, I agree with you on that 100%. The only reason I separated USC and UCLA,
I understand why you said it.
Is because that's what the brand is most famous for. Yeah. That's why I slated it that way. But
yeah, I mean, but they don't need, and that's funny because they don't need that. No, they really don't. This is about football.
And look, you can talk about strictly within the 3-foot window of the economics that, they had, that UCLA and USC feeling they had no choice here. But here's my thing. You are the preeminent programs in this conference. Why are you not doing more to further the revenue streams of this conference? You don't like what's going on? Get the people who are mismanaging your revenue streams fired. I mean, the Pac-12 commissioner hasn't done jack. That dude stuck his head in the sand. So you know what? Move, make changes, do things differently. I'm like,
they are making changes. This is the changes that they made.
Changes that allow that conference to remain intact and keep the history and everything that goes along with what the Pac-12 stands for in terms of West Coast college football. You're basically destroying West Coast college football, all in the name of, oh, my allowance dropped. Come on.
No, allowance is a big thing, especially when funding your school. All right. Speaking of an allowance, the Yankees have an unlimited budget right now of success. They surprisingly, and yeah, I can say surprisingly, I didn't think, if you ever thought that they would be the best team in baseball at 61-23, good job on you. Yeah. Tell me what the lottery numbers are tomorrow.
Right.
Currently, they have a heavy lead in the AL East. 1/2 game away from a learner's permit at 15.5 games, and a sizable lead over the Houston Astros, 6 games, who are the best record in baseball. So, doctors, let's examine. Jay, give me a positive for the Yankees first half that is going to have to continue.
I mean, it's the Captain Obvious one, but it's Aaron Judge's production. Yes, the Yankees arguably have baseball's best rotation and best bullpen. They lead the American League in ERA at 2.95, shutouts with 12, saves with 30, a 107 WHIP. They're second in batting average against 213, homers allowed 76, hits allowed 592, strikeouts 768, walks allowed 217. But this revitalized offense, which leads the American League in home runs with over 140, RBIs with over 400, and runs scored well over 425. They're averaging well over 5 a game, and that went up a tick with the 12 runs they dropped on Boston last night. Their on-base percentage, their slugging percentage, their OPS, all tops in the American League. And their baseball's only 60-win team, and they're the division leader with the largest lead, as you alerted to, Rabbi. It's now 15 and a half games, and they're in it, and it's in a division where 4 of the 5 teams are over 500.
And 4 of the 5 teams would be in the playoffs right now, by the way.
And Aaron Judge is the focal point of that offense. Did anyone take a bigger gamble on themselves in a walk year than Judge? Has it so far paid off better than even he could have expected? The answer to both those questions is a resounding yes. He leads the Yankees in just about every offensive category through the first half of the season. 287, 366, 627 slash line, 993 OPS, 180 OPS plus, 30 homers, 64 RBIs, 65 runs scored. Those last 3 lead all of the American League. And he's the type of towering presence in the Yankee lineup that we really haven't seen since his 2017 AL Rookie of the Year season. And it's not just because Judge stands 6'7" and weighs 282. The formula's been pretty simple this year, guys. Judge plays, Judge hits, the Yankees win. He's played 81 of the team's 84 games. The team is 58-23. In those 58 wins, Judge has a slash line of 297, 370, 668 with an OPS of 1038, 25 homers, 56 RBI, 56 runs scored. In the 23 losses, slash line is 237, 341, 461, OPS of 801, 5 homers, 8 RBI, 9 runs scored. Here's the thing, though. In his career, Judge has put up better numbers in the first half than the second half. First half, 291, 395, 588 slash line to 984 OPS, 115 homers, 257 RBI, 280 runs scored, over 374 pre-All-Star break games. In 250 post-All-Star break games, that slash line drops to 259, 370, 525, it's an 895 OPS, 64 homers, 151 RBI, 164 runs scored. That's a precipitous drop. The Yankees need this level of first half production from Judge to carry over after the All-Star break to give the Bronx Bombers their best chance at finally ending the chase for 28. Oh, and here's a fun little second half storyline for Judge. He's on pace for 59 home runs. Roger Maris's 61 in 61 is still the AL record for most homers in a 162-game season. Can Judge catch or pass him and join Maris and Babe Ruth in the Yankees who hit 60 club? That'd be one hell of a cherry on the sundae that this season could end up being for number 99.
And the pre-steroid era club of home runs. It's insane. I think the one thing that is very more surprising about Judge this year is the fact that he's had 2 walk-off home runs, and he never had a walk-off home run in his entire career until this year. So man's just been a beast, and he is going to break whatever figurative bank that he deserves. All right, Anthony, Yankee hater, it's time for you to give me a negative that needs to stop in the Yankee season.
I'm not a Yankee hater. First of all, it's very hard to find a negative on a team that's 61-23. Are you kidding me?
Not at all.
But there is an underbelly, and that is the Yankees outfield. I mean, outside of Aaron Judge and Stanton, 2 guys who are going to the All-Star game, by the way, they were voted in yesterday as starters. The other two outfielders, Aaron Hicks and Joey Gallo, hasn't really done much, particularly at the plate. Aaron Hicks is batting in the low 200s. His slugging percentage was under 300 for most of the season. And I mean, his walks is OBP of .338, which is not great, not terrible, but definitely not great. And Joey Gallo, our friend of the show, Katie Sharp, tweeted this. She tweeted, Gallo hit 138 with 32 strikeouts in June. He became the first Yankee player in history with a batting average lower than 150 and more than 30 strikeouts in any month of a season. Gallo has been a disaster since he came over from Texas. I don't know what else to say. The Yankees have...
No, disaster is the right word.
No, disaster is perfectly correct.
Yeah, they've dropped him in a batting order. He's batting 9, 10 times this year. They've sat him. They try to give him extra bats. I think Gallo's leading the league in batting practice and BP swings at this point because I think they've tried everything. It's not working. He has just been really bad. Maybe he can get a few more breaks like last night, and the outfielder loses the ball and the lights inexplicably and allow a couple of runs to score. I mean, hey, look, when you're in the Yankees and you're doing this good, everything breaks right for you, including things like that. But the Yankees has got to do something, kind of upgrade this outfield. And I came in during the pre-meeting talk, and I heard Jay talking about the flexibility that Alan Boone does have in his lineup. And Judge playing center field actually does give him some more leverage and flexibility in that lineup. I actually heard the announcers on the Yes Network talking about that Thursday night during the Yankees-Red Sox game. But there are a couple of options. I mean, they could call someone up from the minors. They can maybe make a trade, which I may be outside the realm a little bit. But you got guys available. Andrew Benintendi in Kansas City is possibly a name that's been thrown out there. Ian Happ is another one. Both guys have a good seasons at the plate. Very good defensive players also. So you kind of have an upgrade in both. But I do think the Yankees need someone outfield depth, and particularly as far as offense, because outside of the game-time home run against Houston, Alan Hicks hasn't really done much. And obviously, I think we all collectively have a higher batting average than Joey Gallo at this point.
We do.
And it's a shock because Gallo, throughout his career, has been a very solid hitter, a very disciplined hitter on top of that. So to see him struggling this bad in a stadium notoriously friendly to left-handed hitters, it's very striking. And at this point, the Yankees got to do something.
It's why Matt Carpenter's been playing left field. You know,
the greatest mustache in baseball right now. I mean, mustache is astounding. Ron Swanson is proud somewhere. He's like
Raleigh Fingers is proud somewhere.
Who would have ever thought on the clean-shaven Yankees that we would have talked about mustaches for a bunch of players this year? Don't forget
best Yankee mustache since the days of Goose Gossage and Sparky Lyle.
I know, but it was more of a clean-shaven thing. Don't forget about Nestor Cortez too. By the way, guys, before we continue, Hicks has had a pretty good week. So had a RBI Thursday, had a 4 RBI game against Pittsburgh, although who didn't homer against Pittsburgh in that Wednesday game.
That's true.
The one thing I would say is Hicks has played 70 plus games this season, and that is a huge plus to at least have the flexibility to put him in and out of the lineup, because sometimes he hasn't been able to play. So that is a huge plus.
Two things. Number one, that's 15-0 game. I think if you're a player and you don't get a base hit in that game, you're embarrassed to go back to the clubhouse.
Oh, he got fined in the kangaroo. Anybody who didn't get a base hit got fined in the kangaroo court. We know this.
I said that about the Mets the other night. I was like, don't let that day fool you, okay? It's just been a bad night for Miami. But yeah, I look at it like this. And Rabbi, you are a Western fan just like I am. Matt Carpenter's mustache, we got to have a whole segment on this, okay? You remember Mustache Mountain? I mean, obviously the tag team NXT. Yes. I mean, we gotta have a segment on just how he grooms that thing. It's so even and just stands out on a team that is notoriously for clean-shaven individuals. I mean, the style for the rule clearly still lives on, but between that and Donnie Baseball, I mean, come on, the greatest mustaches
as
Yankee history has got to be talked about.
As Jay has said, the greatest mustaches of this generation in baseball, the New York Yankees. All right. I have a simple question for the second half of the season. It's a two-parter. Number one, when do the Yankees kind of take? I mean, we've seen division leads crumble before, and you have 3 teams in the AL East under them. Actually, 4, because the Orioles are currently only 2 games under 500 with a 6 winning streak.
They're not an embarrassing.
That division is good, but that division is still kind of underperforming, because you wouldn't think that 7 games over 500 would be the second best team in the league. So there's no reason why the Yankees need to take their foot off the gas. But if that lead is double digits in August and September, which if the rate it's going, it could very well be, it's just a question of what do the Yankees kind of do with their lineup. You want to keep them fresh, but you want to keep them healthy for the postseason, because that's where the Yankees have struggled, specifically against the Astros. And it's kind of a little bit of a shame that they're going to have to play the Astros straight out of the All-Star break in a doubleheader, nonetheless, because they were supposed to play the Astros in week 1 of the regular season.
Right.
So they kind of are dumping their games out. So you're not really, that's the team. That's the mountain that the Yankees right now know they have to climb. And they've been 3-4 against them this year, or 2-3, I'm sorry. And honestly, the 2 wins were comeback wins. Wins nonetheless, get to the weakest part of the team, but still, they got no hit by the Astros. So I think the Yankees know that the bugaboo is right there. The other question I'm going to have to find out is what happens when this team goes through a losing streak? Every team in baseball, unless you are the 98 Yankees, which some people have incorrectly contained, will go through losing streaks throughout the season. It's inevitable. It's a great pitching staff this year, but that pitching staff has not pitched a full 200 innings pitched a lot of these starters for either a while or ever, like Nestor Cortez has. So that's going to be my question. It's what happens when the first bump in the road comes about, because they haven't had any real bumps in the road this year. And I'm wondering, because that's where Aaron Boone is going to make his money. He's done a very good job with this lineup this year, but the true mark of a manager is what happens when your first real bit of adversity hits. And this year, the Yankees can say without a shadow of a doubt that adversity has kind of avoided them. All right, time for the Metropolitans. The Mets have had one of their most successful first halves in their franchise's history. I believe they got to 50 wins only quicker twice. But yet, Anthony, your fans are still super, super scared. The Metropolitans are 52-32, and that's good enough for the 4th best team in baseball. However, the 5th best team in baseball are the Atlanta Braves that are battling them for the NL East. 3 games back as of now. I don't know if that game against the Nationals got official yesterday. If it was, it's definitely 2.5 games back. And then you got the Dodgers, who are battling them for best record. They're 2 up. They're 2 down against the Dodgers for that. So here we go. Anthony, give me a Met positive that needs to continue.
By the way, it is 2.5 games.
It is 2.5. They did finish that game last night. I didn't know if they were going to. So.
Yeah, the game went final late last night. So it's 2.5 games coming into today. The positive is definitely been Pete Alonso, and he's been kind of the anchor of this offense. When you look at the Mets, they're so much better when a best hitter is having the kind of season he is having right now. He's either leading or in the top 3 in 2 of the 3 major categories in hitting. So he's 2/3 of the Triple Crown as far as home runs and batting average. He was leading all the majors and RBIs coming into this week, obviously. But he's been more of a well-rounded hitter. I mean, he's batting 274 coming into today's game, and 22 home runs. And he's been kind of a foundation, that cleanup spot at number 4, when you have guys like Nimmo, Marte, and Lindor hitting in front of you, kind of being trendsetters. Alonso's been hitting the ball everywhere across over the field like he was back in 2019 on his rookie season. The last few years, you kind of see him being more of a pull hitter. I think that really hurt him as far as slugging percentages, batting average. But here's the thing too. I mean, through the month of June, he actually surpassed Mike Piazza's 68 RBIs in 2000 as far as
first half RBIs.
Yeah, first half RBIs as far as a record. And also his on-play percentage is .919, which is really good. And the MLB best was coming into this week. So Alonso being able to hit the ball and just get on base, even if he's not hitting home runs, still hitting for average, is definitely a day for a Met team. But as Jay is going to get to his point, that has really, they got to a hot start offensively, but it's kind of definitely tailed down the last couple of weeks. Look, the other night they put on 10 runs 24 hours ago. They barely scored 2 and scored several opportunities to score more runs. So that has been a bit of an issue also. But if Alonso struggles, the rest of his lineup kind of goes with it. We've seen it in the second half of last season when Alonso went into a bit of a slump post All-Star break, the Mets lead in the division also started to went down with all the injuries. But with everything that's going on with the Mets, with the pitching staff, and the injuries to the pitching staff, the inconsistencies in middle relief, which has definitely been a weakness with the Mets, Alonso's been the really consistent player this whole season for the Mets. You see Marte, he's playing like an all-star, but he's had his ups and downs. Nemo has been a good leadoff hitter, but he's missed some games. Lindor's been up and down. There's been a lot of guys up and down and been inconsistent in the lineup. Alonso being the one guy that has been really the foundation of this Mets lineup, and he has to continue that for the Mets to hold on to a division lead that has precariously shrunk considerably in the last 30 days. Think about this. The Mets were 14-12 in the month of June with an incredibly tough schedule, and that still was good for the second best record in the National League for the month of June. The Atlanta Braves were 16-9.
The only team that had a good June outside of another one, which I'll talk about in a second.
So that pretty much tells you everything that you know about the National League East in a nutshell. By the way, the Phillies have not gone anywhere either, and that's something we'll talk about later on. So it's gonna be a dog fight, but maybe this is the kind of game that the Mets need when you think about what happened last season. The second half collapsed, and they get the Atlanta Braves. Wow, they get the Braves prior to the All-Star break, and they'll get them at the end of the month too. So they will have a lot of head-to-head opportunities to really test themselves against the defending World Series champions, who has been just a buzzsaw since the end of May. And I even made a joke. When Atlanta Braves lose a game, it's kind of a shock these days.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. By the way, I felt bad for Alonso not making the All-Star team starters. I thought he's had a very good season. And then
he's definitely going to be reserved.
He'll definitely be reserved. I didn't realize that Paul Goldschmidt was hitting 344.
Really? Where have you been? I didn't realize he was hitting
the National League. I didn't realize he was hitting.
I knew Goldschmidt was tearing it up.
That's insane. I knew he was tearing it up. I didn't realize nobody has a 340 average in baseball.
His numbers.
Nobody.
Yeah. Let me tell you, in the National League, the only person who is having a better first half than Pete Alonso is the very guy who's playing his position, and Paul Goldschmidt. He has been unfreaking believable in his first half of the season.
We'll talk about that for not a great team. All right, Jay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the negative, a little bit of a power outage over in Queens.
Yeah, and Anthony, kind of threw out a little spoiler alert, because the angle that I'm looking at here is that the negative that needs to get fixed is that lack of home run power and the effect it's having on the Mets run scoring. The Mets were the first National League team to win 50 games. And while that may be a testament, to Buck Showalter's leadership and creativity with the roster, as well as the depth of their minor league system with all the injuries they've had, there is an element of smoke and mirrors going on with their offense, especially in the power department. And down the road, it could have a huge negative impact on their postseason hopes. The Mets have the least home runs of any of the 6 division leaders. Their 83 round trippers are 11th in the National League. They only have 2 players in double figures. Alonso, as Anthony mentioned, with those 22, and Francisco Lindor with 14. The team is averaging less than 1 home run per game. Now, the positive way to look at this is that the denizens of Citi Field don't need to have the ball leave the yard in order for them to put up crooked numbers on the scoreboard. Their 404 run scores are 4th in the National League. That's good for 4.81 runs per game. In a senior circuit where only 3 teams are above the 400 run mark. Their 387 RBI are 3rd in the NL. And once again, there are only 2 teams above the 390 mark. But if you look a little deeper, and as the show's resident stat king always does, I look a little deeper. There are some troubling numbers, starting with this one. No team to make the postseason in the last 4 full 162 game seasons has hit fewer than 1 home run per game. The last team to average less than a home run per game in the regular season and win a postseason series, that'd be the 2015 Royals, a team that played a style definitively different from any other that baseball had at that time and has succeeded since. And subsequent to those Royals beating the Mets in that 2015 World Series, the team that has hit more home runs in the regular season has won 60% of the postseason series matchups. In June, the Mets home run rate was static, but the runs per game dropped by nearly a quarter down to 4 flat, which was last in the National League. What the offense had done so well in April and May dropped off precipitously in June. Team's batting average on balls put in play dropped from 315 to 272. Their average with runners in scoring position nosedived from 290 to 237. That is not a good recipe for consistent offense, especially when you have a team that relies so heavily on stringing hits together to create runs, though both of these numbers have started to tick back up at the start of July. Eduardo Escobar is the only other player on the team who has any type of home run hitting resume. 21 in 2017 with the Twins, 23 in 2018 in a season split between Minnesota and Arizona, a career best 35 in 2019 with the Diamondbacks, and 28 in a 2019 season split between Arizona and Milwaukee. He's only got 9 so far this season. He's been struggling at the plate. His slash line is 218, 276, 386 with an OPS of only 661. Guys like Escobar, J.D. Davis, Dom Smith, they all need to get back to the type of power numbers they have previously shown they're capable of in order to take some of that offensive production load off of Alonso and Lindor. Look, we all know that the Mets are historically a pitching first team, led by the aces at the top of their starting rotation. And once all those arms are healthy, Scherzer's back, DeGrom is on his way back, the Mets can compete with anyone on that alone. But if they're going to get past the likes of the Dodgers in the playoffs or even fend off the charge that the Braves are currently mounting in the National League East, they're going to need a lot more than what they've been getting from their bats in the power department, guys.
Okay, so you mentioned the pitching, and that's an actually interesting transition because Jacob deGrom just had another rehab start last night. 3 scoreless innings, has looked pretty good. I'm very curious to see when the Mets want to bring him back because
post All-Star break.
They're in a pennant race.
It's going to be after the All-Star break.
Of course it's going to be after the All-Star break. It's not a lot of time. That's obvious. The question is, do you do it in late July? Do you do it in early August? You need to see what all of the warning signs are because that team is in a pennant race and that team has a pitching staff. They've been lucky with this pitching staff because you missed Max Scherzer for most of the year. He's only made 9 starts, but he has a 2.26 ERA and looks exactly like the guy who you want you signed for 3 years.
Are we sure he's 37 years old? Right?
Well, we'll talk a little bit more about age later. Age ain't up my number because look at Justin Verlander. But you take a look at the rest of that rotation. Carlos Carrasco has 9 wins, but is an ERA approaching 5. Taijuan Walker is 7-2. Has been a surprise. Was a surprise last year too, but he's been a little up and down. David Peterson has made 11 spot starts and has actually been 5-1. He's looked good. For once, it seems like, Anthony, that the Mets bats have actually bailed out the pitchers when they've had bad starts a lot more than anything else. And then, of course, you have Chris Bassett, when he's not being a COVID truther, apparently, saying that they should stop testing for COVID everywhere. He's been 6-6. He's been middle of the road. The injuries and the COVID time off have been putting him off his game a little bit, but he's 3.94. Bullpen, suspect at best. Adam Ottavino talks a really good game and then pitches a very mediocre one, and he's at a 2.59. You've had the good, and that's Seth Lugo, who's been okay. The really good, shockingly, Edwin Diaz has been one of the best closers in baseball this year. He does that in Mets fans to the very end, but he gets the job done. He's like Aroldis Chapman, but not Aroldis Chapman anymore because Chapman's now a shell of himself. But then as Yankees, as Anthony has said, the bullpen sometimes, the middle bullpen, you've had busts like Trevor May has an ERA of over 8. Jake Reed was a disaster at times. You have just Drew Smith has been okay. Chasen Shreve has been horrible for the Mets. That's a problem, I think, going forward. I think the Mets pitching is always hanging on the little bittiest of threads until Scherzer comes back or DeGrom comes back. But one injury, and that thread might break very easily. And Anthony, I would assume you would have to agree with that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Look, obviously, I think we all know I pretty much live at City Field these days, but there've been a couple of games.
10-1.
I don't want to jinx that, okay? Because I'm seeing them in Victory Field this week coming up. But that's another story. There's been a couple of games, particularly the 2 games I went to when they played the Phillies Memorial Day weekend, where the Mets had a comfortable lead and the bullpen kind of coughed it up. And that's the thing, like the starting pitching, and obviously Edward Diaz has been really good. It's the bridge between one and the other that's been very suspect for the Mets. And we saw it last night against Miami in a very close game that they gave up a two-run homer in the top of the eighth inning that really put the game out of reach for a Mets team that has struggled to score runs as of late. It leaves very little margin for error when you think about the starting pitching. Carlos Carrasco started out really good, but you got to keep him away from the Houston Astros because he has no clue on how to pitch against that lineup. Even going back to his days with the Cleveland Guardians, that's number one. But then you think about Tyler Walker, and he had a great first half a year ago, and then kind of throw up a cliff in the second half. What happens if that becomes another glaring thing? And you didn't bring up Jacob deGrom. The Mets got to see what's going on. If there was a red flag there, because the trade deadline is about a quarter, and the Mets may need some depth at starting pitching. I don't know if you want to feel comfortable going with Peterson as a fifth starter late in the year when things really kind of ration up. And then there's this thing, and obviously September, with the expanded rosters coming to play also. So the Mets has got to really figure out exactly what they have moving forward. In the middle of a pennant race, when you think about, how good is deGrom going to be? How much of a leash can we keep him on as far as pitches, and pitches thrown? And the Mets starting rotation, I've noticed this, they really get a high pitch count early in games. That is not a good sign when you're not pitching the contact and you're too worried about trying to find a strike zone or kind of paint the corners. I think only Greg Maddux got away with that his whole career. but when you have that kind, like the last game I went to, and Tyler Walker pitched, he had 87 pitches in 4 innings. Like that's not going to be able. That is putting way too much pressure on your bullpen. Just trying to get to Diaz in a close game. By the way, Edward Diaz intro coming into games at Citi Field is kind of an event in itself. So like I said, it's kind of funny how he's become more of a fan favorite until
I'm shocked at that. I never thought this would happen. And I mean, the postseason could still screw it up. I never thought this would happen.
And look, Jonathan Miller was a fan favorite too. We saw what happened in the World Series.
It fell off a cliff. Understand?
Guys, we talked, up at the top of the show about, the singles and doubles that GMs make that are the ones that the moves that really have an impact on the success or failure of your season. And a guy that neither of you mentioned when you're talking about the Mets pitching was one of those singles and doubles. And I'm talking about Chris Bassett, who they picked up from Oakland. The guy is 6-6 with a 3.94 ERA. The team is 3-1 in his 4 no decisions. He leads the teams in innings pitched. He's kept them in ball games. His whip is a solid 1.13. 1.13. So that's a guy who's he's made every start. He's taken the hill every time his turn has come up. He's been competitive. He's kept the Mets in games. And when a team overall in your 16 starts is 12, is 10-6, that's a 625 winning percentage. You'll take that. He's been very
good. He was meant to come in as a number 3 starter, and he's done it. But there's still a lot of warning signs with Bassett because he can be a better pitcher than what he is now.
Fair
That's what I'm just saying. Because when you're brought in to be a number 3, and one of the others gets injured, you're now a number 2. He's been very solid in the rotation, but I do think he's going to be a huge factor going forward.
Exactly. You need a guy like that, a guy who is a stabilizing force in the rotation. And that's what he's been. He hasn't been lights out, but he hasn't been, ridiculously awful either. He's been exactly what you want out of your number 3 guy.
Yeah. We can talk more about that later, but let's go to the rest of the MLB, which Rob Manfred must be smiling from year to year because the top 4 teams in baseball are all from the 1, 2, and 4 markets in the league. So that always helps out a lot. It's time for our annual first millionth review of the surprises and disappointments of this season so far. So I'm going to ask you for one of you. So Anthony, 1 surprise, 1 disappointment, same turn. Go ahead.
All right. Well, my surprise is actually Alejandro Kirk, and he is now starting catcher for the American League All-Stars going into the All-Star game.
Only first-time starter, by the way, of any of those AL
starters. Which is a huge accomplishment for a Blue Jays team that has kind of underperformed. If you looked at the fact that they just barely missed the playoffs, they've been kind of a middling team in the first half of the year, but you can't blame Kirk. He's been phenomenal. This is a stat that was thrown out there. Players with more base on balls walks than strikeouts and 10 plus home runs this season: Jose Ramirez, Juan Soto, Alejandro Kirk. So that is telling you that's a very small group to be part of, and a very good group. But also you look at his he's hitting over 300, 10 home runs, which has been sensational, particularly in the Rogers Center, which is a very big ballpark, FYI. But also, you look at this, he started in over 70 games, the Blue Jays games, either at catcher or even the occasional spot duty at DH. But his on-play percentage this season, the month of April, 0.584. Month of May, 0.984. Over 1,000, 1.086 for the month of June. So this is a guy who has a catcher in an age we don't see many catchers, let alone a catcher that kind of comes out of nowhere, being a very disciplined hitter, but still being able to get on base the traditional way. I call it the Kevin Youkilis way, the Greek god of walks, a guy who always got on base for whatever reason, even when he couldn't hit. That is very rare. And I think in second half, honestly, the Blue Jays want to make a push for a postseason spot. He's going to have to do that along with, obviously, Flacco Jr. and some of the other second generation ex-ball players that they seem to have on that team.
Before you get to your disappointment, I want to give one more shout out to another Yankee, and that's the guy who finished behind him in the All-Star voting, Jose Trevino, who has done almost exactly what Kirk has done discipline-wise. Hasn't hit for power, but has been a shocking answer at catcher, which I don't think the Yankees ever expected this quickly post-Gary Sanchez era.
Another single and double by Cashman in terms of paying big dividends.
Hey, look at it like this. Like, you couldn't go wrong either way. Like the same thing with Alonzo Goldschmidt. 1 and 2 is for an All-Star. I think if you voted for one or the other, there's no wrong answer. Because
the other one's going to probably go.
And Trevino has done a phenomenal job. But like I said, with the Yankees, everything that happened with Gary Sanchez and that going on, Trevino just stepping in and just been really good for a pitcher. That I think he's actually set up Gary Cole down a little bit too, because Cole did not get off to a great start. He is now pitching like the Gary Cole we are so used to seeing now. So I think he's done I think that's what both of these catchers done, has been very rock steady behind the plate as far as the starting pitching rotation is concerned for both teams. Now, my disappointment, and he was a former Met just last year, and that's Javi Baez. I mean, you think about this. He was signed to a $140 million deal for a Detroit Tiger team that wanted to get out of the rebuilding stages. And you got Miguel Cabrera, who's going to the All-Star game, has a
going to the Hall of Fame.
And a Hall of Famer, but he's pretty much one foot out the door as far as calling it a Hall of Fame career. FYI, so the Tigers wanted to bring in someone. They wanted Carlos Correa first, but that didn't work out. So they brought in Baez, and he has been a disaster. For the $20 million he's going to get this season, he's batting 211 for the season. He's had a great week, but let's be honest, he has just been really bad. A dismal on base percentage below 250 coming into the week. He's only, like I say, he's only hit 11 home runs. He has just been downright bad for a team that is one of the worst offensive teams in baseball. It seems like he's made more headlines off the field since he's been traded to from the Chicago Cubs than he's done on the field. We remember last year with his beef with the Met fans and the thumbs down gestures and all that other stuff. But also, this year he's been booed routinely at home. He just hasn't hit the ball. I mean, we know he's been notorious for being a high value strikeout guy, but he's also hit for average too. He's been able to hit for power and average despite all of that. None of that has translated well and very, very pitcher-friendly Comerica Park. Well, it's a little more. It's more convenient to hit for singles and doubles than home runs. But outside of Miguel Cabrera, Mackley Ordonez was another guy I thought who actually hit for power in that Cavs stadium for what it's worth. But for $20 million, and by the way, there's a lot of money left on this deal. He's going to be virtually untradeable at this point. He's 29 years old. He's still in a peak. He's in the prime of his career. But also, he hasn't done a great job fielding the ball also. So it's just been a down year across the board for a perennial all-star who was so essential to the Chicago Cubs finally breaking the coast of the Billy Goat and was a fan favorite in Chicago for many years and got out to a good start in a Met uniform. He batted .299 for during his time with the Metropolitans before leaving as a free agent. So the fact that all his numbers, his win above replacement is below 1. It's 0.4. So everything had just fallen off a cliff this year for Javi Baez.
Here's to me what puts the icing on that cake, Anthony, for your segment there. There's only one shortstop in all of Major League Baseball that has a worse OPS than Javi Baez's 622, and that's Jorge Mateo of Baltimore, who's at 565. I mean, Mateo's a kid. Baez, come on now, are you kidding me? Talk about, as you said, not being worth the money you're getting paid. Wow.
Well, Baez is a kid, just immature.
That is Bobby Bonilla 1992 levels. When you talk about
you're gonna say this 8 days
average,
after Bobby Bonilla Day and just insult the man after he got his money for 2022?
Well, hell, I mean, think about this. We didn't have a show around that time, so it's a little 8 days late. But you think about Bobby Bonilla getting a big contract and having a subpar season to follow it up.
Check.
So
happy late Bobby Bonilla Day. Speaking of disappointments, added disappointment and surprise for me there, Jay.
I'm gonna get into that in a second, but Rabbi, I just want to throw some Paul Goldschmidt stuff your way since you were so shocked by how well he's playing. Our pal Jason Stark named him his NL MVP of the half year. Goldschmidt has a 343, 427, 620 slash line, 1047 OPS, 199 OPS plus 37 homers, 125 RBI, 89 extra base hits, and 118 runs scored. You know how many first basemen in the live ball era who've had that kind of season? 2. Jimmy Fox, 1932 and 33, and Lou Gehrig, 1927, 1930, 1934. Scary the numbers that Goldschmidt's putting up. Okay, for me, my pleasant surprise, and I was kind of struggling between some guys, and Rabbi, thank you for helping me narrow it down. I decided to go all in with Sandy Alcantara, who's the starting pitcher for the Miami Marlins, and this dude is putting up a Cy Young first half for a team that is otherwise struggling to keep pace in the National League East. They're 12 and a half games in back of the Mets, and in the National League wild card race, they're 4 games in back of the final spot. Dude is 9-3 with a 1.82 ERA. His WHIP is 0.91. His batting average against is 190 over 17 starts. He leads the National League with 123 and a third innings pitched. The 9 wins are second in the National League. His 182 ERA is also second. His WHIP and his batting average against are both good for third best. Oh, and he leads not just all pitchers, but all players in wins above replacement with 4.8. Now, I was ready to do my usual deep dive into his season, but when our pal Jason Stark of The Athletic named Alcantara as his mid-season NL Cy Young, he had the numbers for me at the ready. So thank you, sir, and here we go. 1, he has spun off 11 starts in a row with at least 7 innings pitched. That is the longest streak by anybody in 8 years since Clayton Kershaw fired off 17 in a row in 2014. How many other active right-handed pitchers have ever had a streak that long? Yeah, that would be 0. 2, in those 11 starts, Alcantara is 7-1 with a 133 ERA. Since Y2K, and I'm using Jason's words here, only 4 pitchers have had an 11 start stretch in a single season with that many wins, no more than 1 loss, and an ERA that good, and as many innings pitched, 87 2/3, pitches thrown, 1,177, and batters faced, 324 as Alcantara. I'm guessing you guys might have heard of these guys. Randy Johnson in 2000, Chris Carpenter in 2005, Cliff Lee in 2011, and CC Sabathia in 2008. 3, no right-handed starter has had an 11-start span with that heavy a workload, innings, pitches, and batters faced in over a decade. Roy Halladay, Justin Verlander, James Shields all did it in 2011, but it's not merely all those 7-inning starts that separate Alcantara from the pack. He has also pitched 8 innings or more 8 times already. Only Adam Wainwright and Aaron Nola have that many 8-inning starts over the last 3 seasons combined. Then there are Alcantara's 10 starts of 100-plus pitches, not to mention the 7 starts in which he was permitted by the proper authorities, meaning his manager, to face at least the top of the lineup for a 4th time. And I know you thought 4th time through the starts had been banned by now, but nope, manager Don Mattingly has let his ace face a total of 33 hitters for a 4th time in his starts, and Alcantara has allowed a total of 3 hits to those 33 hitters. In other news related to Sandy Alcantara, did you know that opposing leadoff hitters have a .259 on-base percentage against him and have scored exactly 1 run in 17 starts? Did you know opposing cleanup hitters are hitting .143 with no home runs against him? And did you know that he's faced 160 more hitters this year than the likes of Tony Gonsolin, 55 more than Corbin Burns, and over 100 more than the likes of Joe Musgrave and Zach Wheeler? I'll sum this up using Mr. Stark's own words. Here's the quote. You know what we call pitchers who are that dominant and take on that heavy a load here in this load management age we live in? 2 words cover it: Cy and Young.
Can I counter your stat before we get to your disappointment?
Well, you're going to anyway, so.
Yeah, because I'm the host. I can do that. So Shane McClanahan,
the other guy on my list,
was my other choice for you, and that was 9. He's 9-3 with a 1.72 ERA. He's amazing. Until yesterday, I don't know if he did it yesterday too, but he has had 10 consecutive starts with 6 or more innings pitched, with 7 or more strikeouts and 2 or fewer runs allowed. That's the longest streak in American history since records started becoming kept in whatever was 100 years before Y2K, 1901. The only 2 to do it ever is to do it. This also is Randy Johnson in the that never happened in the AL, but in the NL, yeah. Randy Johnson, 1999 Diamondbacks, pretty good season, and Mike Scott, 1986 Astros, pretty good season. Also,
Rabbi, to answer your question, McClanahan last pitched
last night.
Was no decision as they lost 2-1. 6 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 run.
And one more stat on Justin Verlander, who is going to probably win the AL Cy Young, if not for the fact that he's going to get the sympathy vote for not pitching a game in 3 years. Only 2 starting pitchers, 39 or older, have ever posted an ERA lower than 2. Verlander is exactly a 2 at this point. Cy Young again, and Roger Clemens. Insane stats. Young put up an ERA of 1.99 when he was 40. Clemens put up a 1.87 ERA when he was 42.
Yeah, I would add this too. Can you imagine how good the Marlins record would be if they knew how to field the damn ball? Because they would mind, when they take the field, they would mind you doing young team. I mean, last night they almost shot the pop up with the bases loaded. And the bomb in the 8th inning. Now I want to give the best to lead. So,
I don't know. Ask the Red Sox this week about their fielding.
All right, my crushing disappointment is a team that I had high hopes for coming into the season. That is the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, or whatever they're calling themselves these days, since it changes pretty much on the daily. Is there any team that's had the first half that the Angels have had? The hot start, the cold collapse, one manager fired, his successor getting suspended for 10 games in the wake of a benches clearing ball brawl with the Mariners. This team is going in the complete opposite direction of what I predicted on our MLB preview show. And this is a team that has Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. Think about this, guys. The Angels were in first place in the AL West for 23 days through May 16th and were a season high 11 games over 500 as late as May 15th. 10 days later, the bottom began to fall out, and it didn't stop until June 8th when that 14-game losing streak finally and mercifully came to an end. And as of Thursday, They're a season low 8 games under 500 at 38-46, 17 games behind the Astros. April is the only month where they had a winning record at 14-8, 13-15 in May, 10-18 in June, and not counting last night's games, 1-5 in July. Their slash line has gotten worse and worse as the season has gone on. April, as a team, 257, 332, 432. May, 246, 313, 420. June, 215, 280, 641. And at the start of July, 142, 224, 213. Their pitching metrics have also been awful. ERA, whip, and home runs allowed. April, 3.60, 1.087, 24. May, 3.95, 1.231, 27. June, 391, 1.331, 32. And in the first 6 games of July, 4.89, 1.45, and 13. They have 11 guys who've played at least 45 games and have at least 130 at bats. Only 4 are hitting above 250, and only 1 is above 265. Mike Trout and Taylor Ward are the only hitters above 350 in on-base percentage, and Trout, Ohtani, and Ward are the only players above a 450 slugging percentage and an OPS above 825. Oh, and Anthony Rendon is on the injured list again and out for this season. Not that he produced much when he was healthy, so much for this big free agent grab. 228, 324, 383 with a 707 OPS, 5 dingers, 24 RBI, and 15 runs scored in just 45 games. Talk about another guy not living up to his contract. Ohtani is the only starting pitcher with enough innings to qualify for the ERA title, and he and Patrick Sandoval are the only members of the rotation with an ERA under 375. Ohtani at 2.44 and Sandoval at 3.09. And the two of them and Reed Detmers are the only starters with a whip under 1.2. No one in the bullpen has an ERA below 350, but 3 of their relievers do have whips under 1.1. Noah Syndergaard, another big free agent pickup, has been more than Thor. 5-7, 3.84 ERA, 1.166 whip, and barely averaging 5 innings per start. One a microcosm of where the Angels are at. In a 3-game series over the weekend heading into July 4th, which was mercifully a day off for them. They were outscored 21-4 by the Astros, managed just 8 hits, but 48 strikeouts over the 3 games, including a 20 whiff performance on July 3, which gave them 811 as a team, tops in the AL by a 61 strikeout margin. And yet when asked about his team's propensity for chalking up the most negative of the 3 true outcomes, manager Phil Nevin, yes, he of the 10-game suspension after the brawl, had this to say. Here's the quote. For me, the strikeout is not, you don't like to see a guy walk back to the dugout, but sometimes it can be more productive out in the double play. Are you kidding me, Phil? Really? Really? I believe the term the Athletics beat writer for the Angels used to describe such a comment as toxic positivity pretty much sums it up. Since their big losing streak started, the Angels have scored 4 runs or less in 29 of 37 games coming into Thursday night. The offense has gone silent. Look at the last 7 days for Trout and Ohtani, which includes that series with Houston. Trout's last 7 days, 0.046 batting average, 125 on base, 046 slugging. That's a 171 OPS, no homers, 1 RBI. Ohtani's last 7 days, 143 batting average, 250 on base, 286 slugging, 536 OPS, 1 home run, 4 RBI. If not for Ohtani absolutely killing it on the mound, who knows how bad this team might be. He's won his last 4 starts and has allowed 1 run, and it was unearned over 20-plus innings. A season that began with so much promise. I had them as my surprise team to watch in the AL, potential playoff team. That season is careening downhill and showing no signs of being able to slow its descent.
As I had
they got nice uniforms. I'll say that.
As I had said to Anthony before, when the brawl between the Mariners and the Angels happened about 2 weeks ago, that was the first big hit Anthony Rendon has ever gotten in his career. So that's how that goes. Okay. For surprise, Anthony kind of mentioned to it earlier. My surprise is the Phillies host Joe Girardi. Girardi, and we all love Girardi, which is why we're like, why are you firing a guy like Joe Girardi who's had big success? And the answer seemed to be simple, and I didn't want to say it at the time because y'all would have just jumped at me. He's too much of a disciplinarian on a team that didn't respond well to discipline. And Girardi just seemed to just not get along with the younger guys on this team. This is a team filled of 25-year-olds and some 30-year-olds, people who are used to the new way of managing. It's worked because since June 1st, the Phillies are 24-10. They are and they're doing it pretty much without Bryce Harper, who's probably not going to be back until August or September. You can't even get the DH spot to mask him in now. And Gene Segura, who's probably going to be out for a while as well. Rob Thompson has been a huge help for this team. He took over on June 3rd. They, as of last week, they were outscoring opponents 172-116. They are just doing very well. Zach Wheeler is having just another great season pitching after having a slow start to begin this year. And speaking of little doubles that were being hit, give it up for Mr. June, Kyle Schwarber, who was just knocking the ball out of the park. He is now, he had 25 homers as of last week. Schwarber has been a huge help to a lineup that's needed a lot of help hitting wise, and will still need it obviously with Harper being out. But if this is the Phillies team that you're going to see, they are currently right now in the second or in the third wild card playoff spot as they've overtaken the Cardinals. They actually have them for a 4-game series this weekend. They're going to be a very, very pesky team at the end of the season. Mets took care of them a lot in the beginning of the year, but that's because they played them 11 times before June. All of them were in the Joe Girardi era. None of them are now. And so this team is a lot different when they're losing with Rob Thompson. We've seen this happen a lot. We saw this happen with the Nationals a few years ago and how they got off to a bad start and they got their way to the World Series in 19. Same with the Braves, who were under 500 as late as August last year. Phillies, compared to those two, the Phillies can easily do a big time run to the postseason. And if they can get to the postseason, watch out. All right. Now for the disappointment. And it just pains me to say this because I love him so much as a manager. But Tony La Russa and the Chicago White Sox, what are you doing? Tony La Russa has been making bad lineups consistently this year. The team did not make any real moves in the offseason and tried to run it back with what they had. And that's fine, but you have to make some improvement. He has no way of managing a bullpen because guess what? Old people who are in old ways don't necessarily do the things that good managers do. Yes, Tim Anderson is going to the All-Star break. He's had an okay season. He is hitting .316. Jose Abreu is having a 10 home run, 38 RBIs as of right now. You're not going to get that done for a guy you've paid a lot of money to be one of your big players in the starting lineup. And just this team is just not there pitching-wise. The pitching has been not great to say the least. Lucas Giolito is 5-5 with a 5.05 ERA. Johnny Cueto is okay. Dylan Cease has been the best person in that rotation, but overall, you would have expected the White Sox to be a very good team in a division that seemed pretty wide open for them. They were by far the most talented team out there. Cleveland is in a rebuilding mode. Detroit is still a little young. They have won 6 straight, by the way, so watch out for them in the All-Star break. But Minnesota has just been a better team over them this season. They took care of them a lot in regular season meetings. Minnesota made necessary moves like getting Carlos Correa, getting the likes of the Yankees in the trade in, Gio Urshela and Gary Sanchez, who have been doing a part. Urshela's probably been a little bit more of a help to that Twins lineup. And here's what you got. You got a team who, if the White Sox continue the way they are, there will be no chance that Tony La Russa will be managing this team in 2023, and he can go back to his little couch, shake the newspaper at the screen when a double switch happens that he doesn't like, and he can just.
Double switches don't happen anymore.
That's right, they don't happen anymore.
We're in the age of universal.
But he can just shake his newspaper at the screen when something happens that he doesn't like, or he sees Tim Anderson actually doing something exciting. This is not a sustainable business model for Tony La Russa. and it's being shown now.
What?
Honestly, I mean, look, guys, I think we talked about this on the show right after La Russa was named manager of the White Sox. We were all kind of surprised, that the old man yelling at the kids to get off his lawn was the White Sox choice to, be the guy in the dugout. So I didn't see this ending any way other than badly. So I can't say I'm honestly surprised that
no one is, but
nosedive is finally here. I mean, really. I mean, look, granted, you on paper they should be better than they are. But I don't think any of us, thought that the White Sox and La Russa were a good rest combination for success.
Look, I said that last year. They made the playoffs in spite of Tony La Russa. It was like it's one of those cases where the White Sox just won games because they're good, regardless of who was the manager in that regard. Not this time, not this year. It's like the only thing La Russa did anything correctly was actually standing up for his players this time around. Unlike with the Tim Anderson,
last year he didn't do
Josh
that.
Donaldson's situation. Last year he didn't do that at all. He actually left his players out to dry, which I think was a sign of
winning cures a lot of ills, guys.
Of course,
we know this. Winning cures a lot of ills.
Guys, remember this before we continue. They swept the Yankees on May 25th, and that was the last time they were over 500.
Wow.
So, all right.
Yeah.
All right. So, Jay, you just said winning cures a lot of ills. Welcome to the Nets, because let's go local as we start our NBA free agency recap.
Nice segue, partner.
And we'll do a little bit of a preview of this. Well, let's start with the Nets and Knicks end. Winning cures a lot of ills, but if you're the Nets, losing really shows all of them. I remember when I said that when we were doing our postmortem for the show, I think it would be an idea for the Nets to blow it up and to start the season for next year, and gosh darn it, it just might happen. Hasn't happened yet, but there's a possibility that it will. Let's take this in two parts, and Jay will get to KD in a moment, but we got to start in sequential order. Anthony, oh God, I might as well just mute my mic now and leave for the rest of the day. Let's almost 2 weeks ago, Kyrie Irving went from threatening to not pick up his $36 million option to testing the water, and then decided immediately to take those feet out of the water, put a pen to a contract, and sign that $36 million option for 2022-23. Good decision. Anthony, your opinion, and I know
I don't know if that contract is worth the paper it's written on, or how much Kyrie's signature is worth at the bottom of it. I don't know that necessarily means whether he's going to still be a Net come the fall, Anthony. Take it, man.
And look, there was a Nets fan that was trying to get on my case on Facebook, because he obviously said, well, what happened to the Knicks? Trae Young happened. And I was like, what happened to the Nets? Jason Tatum happened. So we're even. That's number one. But here's the thing too, with Kyrie Irving, he had nothing to stand on. He had no negotiation power in all this.
Nobody wanted him.
First off, you're coming off a season where you basically did not get vaccinated. So you missed 2/3 of the season. That's number one. Number two, when you did play, you played well sporadically and didn't play well in the playoff series. That was number two. Then number three, you're Kyrie Irving, okay? Let's just put this out there. That's number three. Nobody wants to deal with the headache that comes with having Kyrie Irving on the team. Remember in March, on a nationally televised game against the Knicks, he shows up, he's waving, he's kissing babies pretty much at the Barclays Center, knowing full well all the cameras are on him, like in a look at me moment. That's something I think a lot of teams don't want to deal with. And he did the smart thing. He opted in after he tried to force the hand and try to do every lack of negotiating tactics he can. And the next front office rightfully called his bluff. He did the right thing, but now he's telling people he's going to be a Laker. He's going to wear the same uniform that Kobe Bryant once wore. He showed up at an LA Sports game Thursday night also, which is another look at me moment.
By the way, I'm not 100% sure that he didn't think it was an actual Los Angeles Laker game. The man is crazy enough to actually think he was there for a ceremony to get back.
Look, at this point, Kyrie Irving is an unconventional thinker. We get that.
That's a diplomatic way of saying it.
Well, I'm trying to keep my language clean here. We're all streaming on Facebook too, by the way. But that's another thing. So I'm trying to figure anything out with him. It's just we don't have time for all this. And I have to pack my vacation at some point. But the thing is though with Kyrie Irving and what the Nets are, with this whole thing with the Lakers is that I swap for Russell Westbrook. It's almost like, okay,
that's not happening.
We'll trade your headache for my headache. That's not happening because Westbrook makes way more money than Kyrie
Irving. $11 million more is not.
Yeah, $11 million more. The Nets are already in luxury tax hell as it is. But then when he was 13, the rumor was the Spurs. But come on, let's be honest. Don't want to picture Greg Popovich hoping the Lakers of all teams. So that's not happening. No. But Kyrie, the smallest thing Kyrie Irving, if he actually listens to conventional wisdom, would be you opted in, play your butt off, and you get your max money next season.
Yep.
May not be the Nets, but it'll be somebody that's going to give him top dollar because he's still Kyrie Irving. He's still a guy that's a potential all-star that could give you 40, 50 points that we saw against Orlando earlier this year that could show up and be a highlight reel himself. The thing is, Kyrie Irving wants to do, and I hate to agree with Stephen A. Smith, we all know that, but he likes to do things his way at his pace. When you hear the rumors of him having individual practices from what the team and Steve Nash is doing, then you see him having press conferences saying, yo, me and the front office are going to sit together and we're going to plan out the future of this team. And it's like, dude, you played literally all of 29 games during the regular season, and you're showing up in game one when you played really well against Boston, and that got overshadowed because you couldn't keep your fingers to yourself, figuratively and literally, as far as flipping off the fans. You played 103 games, and you missed 123 games. A friend of mine asked and told me that the net fans go to Boston to see Kyrie Irving. I had to correct them. You can't pay to see a guy who never shows up. So that was an oxymoron in itself. Like, Kyrie Irving has become the king of, like, how does a guy get $30 million for having a part-time summer youth work schedule? It's beyond me, but I want Kyrie Irving's agent because I want that kind of lifestyle in another year or so. But look, the confessional thing was just being like, there's no market for him. The Nets are pretty much stuck with him, at least going into the season. The Lakers are the only dumb team because they're desperate that will want to deal with Kyrie Irving and his shenanigans because they're still stuck in a 2016 time warp where him and LeBron combined for 40 points. I mean, they put 40 points each and was a catalyst for a 3-1 finals comeback. That's not the Kyrie Irving they're signing up for. So much has happened in 6 years since he made that shot over Steph Curry in the finals. Like, right now, I think the Nets did the right thing. They're standing firm, they're standing pat. But I think also they were going to remind Kyrie Irving, dude, if you want this money, you got to show up for work. That's pretty much what it's all comes down to. Show up, and your best ability right now be availability. When you're taking games off, pre-vaccination mandate, by the way, when you're taking games off and you're showing up in Zoom meetings and get caught out in nightclubs, which violated the COVID mandate, the protocol. And then before then, you only played in 23 games, and then you try to convince everyone else to not participate in the bubble, only because the league told you, as an injured player, you can't participate. That says everything that Kyrie Irving's ability is on the court. He's a headache and a distraction off the court, and it's always a matter of, do you want to deal with the baggage that comes with him? And right now, a lot of teams are kind of saying, hell no, we don't want to deal with this at all.
And let me just say this about the Lakers. They only want him at the $6 million price that would have been the veterans bid.
And that's not happening.
That's not happening now, obviously. But I feel like there was a good moment of time where KD is like, or where Kyrie is like, I'll take that $6 million just to prove people wrong. Luckily, for his own financial benefit, he didn't do that. But no, let's get the mice over here that just says, 3 days later, because that's what we're going to do now. We're going to go 3 days later after Kyrie signed his massive extension. Everything was not good in Nets land because Kevin Durant went to Nets management. And for one reason or another, which I want to get into after your rant, Jay, requested a trade from Brooklyn. the deal hasn't been worked out yet. He has a wish list of Phoenix, Miami, the 1927 Yankees, and the Miracle on Ice team of 1980. So since the trade hasn't been worked out for all of that, we still have a future left. So Jay, your thoughts?
Well, as I said to you over text when y'all showed me that mock-up of him wearing a New York Yankees shirt, I said, the cops that patrol 161st Street and River Avenue are under orders to keep KD out of the house that Jeter built. So he's not coming there. As annoyed as I find his request for a trade with 4 years remaining on his contract, and as annoying as I find his hypocrisy, considering all the trash he talked when he first joined the Nets, I can't honestly say I'm surprised. This has been Kevin Durant's MO for his entire career. He's one of the best players to lace him up and step onto the hardwood, but in every other way, he is the poster child for everything that is wrong in this day and age of player empowerment. This is just further proof that despite all his talk about wanting to have a team of his own, at the end of the day, he just doesn't have a single ounce of real leadership in him. He doesn't know how to truly captain a ship. It started with the Thunder, the first time he was the man and the team was his. Make no mistake about that. Even with Russell Westbrook and James Harden on the floor with him, it was KD's team. And he was so beloved by that city for putting OKC on the NBA map that statues and airport names and anything else he would have wanted would have been his upon retirement. But none of that seemed to make Durant want to stay on a team poised to be a contender and build a legacy there. You'd have thought Golden State would have been the perfect situation for him then, right? Getting to play alongside another future Hall of Famer in Steph Curry, who was willing to step back and let KD be the alpha, not to mention the opportunities he'd have had to approach a Jordan-level number of championships, as it's likely the Warriors title this season would have been at least number 6 if KD was still there. But once again, he didn't want to stay to win more rings and build on that legacy. So he decides to make his next address the Barclays Center instead of MSG, brings his good pal Kyrie along for the ride, and pretty much insists that the Nets acquiesce to every one of his and Irving's demands, starting with bringing in another pal, DeAndre Jordan, to be the starting center, even though Jordan is unplayable, and it meant moving Jarrett Allen, who was developing nicely under Kenny Atkinson. How'd that turn out? Oh, yeah. Allen averaged 16.1 points and 10.8 rebounds for the Cavs and was an all-star this year. Speaking of Atkinson, KD and Kyrie didn't think he was a championship coach, so the Nets let him go and brought in Steve Nash, who had zero experience as a head coach, but had an existing relationship with KD from his time in Golden State. And yet both KD and Kyrie joked on a podcast about how little control Nash would have over running their team. And if that wasn't enough, they went out and got his old OKC running mate, James Harden, giving up a crap ton of draft capital and players in the 3-team trade to do so. And then once again, when the going got tough, Kyrie's vaccination situation, Harden wanting out, the team flaming out in the postseason, being swept by Boston, he once again decided against being a leader and team builder and chose to force yet another exit and find a team that was almost championship ready, hello Phoenix, and be their final piece just as he was when he went to Golden State. Kevin Durant is the perfect ambassador of this era of player empowerment that all three of us agree has gone way too far, abusing the power he has to call his shot, causing wreckage to the franchise he leaves behind as he bolts out the door to his next destination because the grass is always greener and just because he can. He'll probably be a first ballot enshrinee in Springfield when it's all said and done. But if I had a vote, I would do what a lot of the old school Baseball Hall of Fame voters have done in the past, deliberately not put him on my ballot in his first year of eligibility solely because he's been such a selfish, self-centered, egotistical prima donna. Here endeth the rant.
I want to go through a few things first. Number one, he really left the Warriors in big trouble as they won a title this year. Probably would have been 4 or 5, but you didn't mention this. And if it's KD, the reason why KD, first of all, do not have to give him the trade request. And right now, this is the final real power player empowerment test. We're going to see what happens because the Nets can leave him on the roster. And I think the Nets are realizing we don't like you, but we're not going to get rid of a guy who has 4 years left on his contract.
No,
25 cents. And
the Nets already have the Sixers and Ben Simmons scenario as the playbook. You hold on to him until you get exactly what you want for him. And if KD decides he's going to pull a Ben Simmons and not suit up, hey,
you don't get paid.
You don't pay him.
You don't pay him. But the other thing that just makes me sick about this whole thing is the fact that the possibility that I've heard from many people that KD is leaving the Nets wants to leave the Nets because of the way the Nets treated Kyrie Irving. Are you fucking kidding
me? Throw the hell up.
That is
the hell up.
The most ridiculous thing I have ever seen in my entire life. And if that doesn't prove why I have all the respect of players getting what they want and what they think they deserve. But in that case, 1-year contracts and then go to another team. And yes, Anthony, I'm going to let you finish because you said exactly the same thing to me many moons ago.
I said this back in Oklahoma 3 days. Kevin Durant is not leadership material. He's a great ball player. He's going to do that. I don't think he'll sit home and not play if you don't get his way. That's not the way he's wired. But if you want a locker room leader, Kevin Durant is not that. I saw it in Oklahoma City. People got on my case because I called it out, and I was like, well, geez, a decade later, and I was still saying the same thing. I said it when he came here.
Which is why him leaving Golden State made absolutely no sense. He was in a perfect position. He doesn't have to be the face of the franchise. That's Steph. All he has to do is step on the floor and be KD. That's it. And yet he still walked away from that.
And the irony in all this is that KD and Kyrie were the first two people to come and say how they were going to put the Nets on the map. They want to take over New York. And yet, they're the first two guys who want to put out the door. Meanwhile, the Knicks aren't moving Julius Randle or anybody like that because they actually like playing in New York despite all the stuff that goes on. Meanwhile, it's just hilarious how the Nets franchise just can't get out of their own way. They're out-nicking the New York Knicks when it comes to PR disasters at this point.
Speaking of out-nicking the New York Knicks, I just want to talk quickly about the New York Knicks, who have had a relatively quiet offseason compared to this, but they've made moves. I mentioned many, many moons ago on this show, not many moons ago, a couple of months ago on this show, to give the whatever Jalen Brunson wants in free agency, and they made it their mission. They may have taken a little too much cap space out for him, but they signed him to a 4-year, $102 million deal, I believe, maybe around that area, in like the $22.5 million range. Is it a lot? Sure, it's a lot, but I do have to agree that they want a little bit of stability in the point guard position. And if you're going to have to pay extra, and if you've seen some of the contracts that have been paid, you have to pay extra. Go do it. They had a mission and they did it. They also got relief in the center position, which I thought was very good. I think re-signing Mitchell Robinson, $15 million a year and for 4 years might be something a little bit of a risk for someone who's injury prone, but he is young. He can play a very good 5 if he needs to. And they signed Isaiah Hartenstein from the Clippers, who was a $11 to $12 million possible player, and signed him for $9 million a year for 2 years. And so even if you miss games from Robinson, you have a good player there to back him up. And then they got rid of contracts. They got rid of Nerlens Noel. Kemba Walker obviously isn't on the team anymore after all of
this. I was saying yesterday as well.
Yeah, I have to say, those moves, the Knicks have had a relatively quiet offseason so far, but they're building something. Now, they're going to need a star to get back into championship contention. And I know Anthony mentions every single time Donovan Mitchell attends a Mets game, maybe he likes attending Mets games, that it's going to happen. I know it's not going to happen, Jay, but again, this is basketball, never say never. But it's more likely or not that the Knicks are still going to have to wait a little while for that over-the-top star to help them. But if you cultivate the right way, which is what the Nets are not doing.
Hey, I'm just saying, it's an easier drive from Midtown Manhattan to City Field than flying in from Utah. I'm just saying.
It is, but that's not a statement point. All right. Finally today, let's talk about the rest of free agency. So you think everyone else is quiet? Of course they're not. This is the Woj, Brian Windhorst era of free agency going on right now.
What about Shams? Don't forget about Shams.
I did the hands already. I moved it. But
Shams, I said.
Shams too, but it's all about Windy.
It's all about Woj. Yes.
All right. So I'm just going to make some questions. Anthony, what if there was a parenthetical KD deal coming soon, but what if there was a Utah Jazz star that might have gone to a team what if they gave a lot of draft picks to that team and a lot of players? So what if Rudy Gobert went to the Timberwolves? Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
That happened.
Yeah, that did kind of happen, right? It was funny because Gobert was the one who was rumored to say that the Jazz had to make a choice between him and Donovan Mitchell. Well, we know Utah made the choice, and Gobert's the one leaving town, but he's going to a Minnesota Timberwolves team that has Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards, which, by the way, you did mention in the KD segment, the Nets wanted both those guys and a bunch of draft picks for Kevin Durant. I want what the Nets are smoking, okay? That is outrageous. But besides the point, for Gobert, you get a guy that can now anchor the 5 and move Karl Anthony Towns to the 4, which is actually more comfortable. I mean, this is a guy, Karl Anthony Towns is the self-proclaimed best big shooter of all time, and likes to hang on the perimeter. So that actually helps Karl Anthony Towns be more of a stretch 4 than have to be the 5 and have to post up more, which he looks very uncomfortable. You saw in the playoffs against Memphis, he does not do a great job when his back is to the basket when he's facing up. But defensively, I think that's where Minnesota is going to shine. They were already top 10 as far as playoff teams in defense. Adding Gobert being an elite shot blocker and obviously a multiple defensive player of the year, that helps them out. That helps them out substantially. And you added him to a team whose best players are 25 and 24 years old, respectively. So, like I said, I think they'll be good enough to at least be out of that playing scenario and be a top 6 team in the Western Conference. So, on the flip side, the Utah Jazz is a team in transition. They got a slew of draft picks, a bunch of players, including Patrick Beverly, who, what, for all of the crap talking he was doing on ESPN for that month he filled in as an analyst, he's the guy that gets traded off. Just that tells you, don't ever piss off the sports guys. They're very fickle, okay? Patrick Beverly had managed to do that multiple times, and he never learns his lesson because he just keeps you bouncing team to team to team, and he never shuts up. But with him gone, the Jazz are a team of digestion. Donovan Mitchell is very known. He doesn't want to leave the team. He doesn't want to be. The Jazz don't look like they want to train him, but they're building something. They got to rebuild, obviously. They got a bunch of draft picks. They moved Gobert's contract off the payroll, which is also a good thing. So it's kind of a. I know ESPN gave Utah an A because of the haul they got back, but I give it an incomplete because now we just gotta see what exactly is gonna come along with this Jazz team. That clearly, you got a bunch of players back, but it's the draft picks. I think Utah is valuing more than anything, and also getting Gobert's contract off the books. So we're just gonna have to wait and see what those draft picks turns out to be. Maybe they use that in a trade and bring someone else in. Maybe they use it to build a younger team. But we'll just wait and see. I'll give them an incomplete for right now.
Well, if you want to know the draft picks, it's a unprotected 2023 first round pick. Keeping that word in mind, unprotected 2025 first round pick, unprotected 2027 first round pick, and a top 5 protected 2029 first round pick, and a swap in 2026. So you do that and get rid of 4 players, including a first round player, so that you picked this year. So that's technically another first round pick you got in. It's championship or bust with that move for Minnesota. And I don't know right now if that's a championship move. And I think you'd have to agree, Jay.
Yeah, they're taking a big gamble. We're in a very much a positionless small ball era where all your 4s and 5s have to be capable of being in some shape, manner, or form a stretch 4 or a stretch 5, being able to step out and knock down jump shots. At least the corner 3. Gobert doesn't do any of that. You're essentially hoping that him being there as the rebounder, rim protector, and quarterback of that defense is the safety net that allows Towns to play more to his better capabilities. He doesn't have to be the guy in the rim protector on defense, the big rebounder, bang underneath. He can step out more. He feels he's quick enough to guard better on the perimeter. And it also allows him the freedom to be more out on the perimeter offensively than having to being force fed in the post. So we'll see. It is a gamble. The Twin Towers thing is now an anomaly. Hell, even having one legitimate back to the basket, low post type of center is an anomaly. My Sixers have it in Embiid, but going with 2, this is either going to be a big boom or bust scenario. There's a great article in The Athletic by John Hollinger, kind of doing a deep dive into this. So it kind of bears that out. What the Timberwolves are hoping is that the best parts of each player, Gobert and Towns, are enough to offset what are the weaknesses of the other player and improve the overall, production of that Timberwolves team. You're going to have to stagger their minutes a little bit to kind of make this work. And the true test, I think that'll be enough to get them into a top 6 seed, even though the West is loaded. It's possible, but the truth will bear out is whether or not they can play together in a tightly contested playoff series where both of these guys are going to need to be on the floor more often together. You can get away with it in a regular season. Can you make it work in the playoffs? And that's where the rubber's going to meet the road, and we'll know whether or not this is, a boom or a bust.
And I think the more important question for me is, can you make enough room for Anthony Edwards? That's all I'm going to say.
That's the thing.
To have room to space up the floor. Okay. Malcolm Brogdon has been rumored to be on the trade block since pre-pandemic, and I'm not even joking with that. That is actually 100% true.
Yes.
But he's finally leaving Indiana to go to the other whitest place in North America, Boston.
Yeah, as much as the New York sports fan in me hates Boston teams, it's genetics. The sports media analyst really likes this move by the Celtics. As I noted time and again on our show during the NBA playoffs and the finals, the Celtics' Achilles heel was turnovers, and a large part of that was due to not having an actual true point guard running the show and facilitating their offense. Brogdon gives them that and more. He gives them a player who can run the pick and roll, draw defenses in and make a good read, a guy who can get the ball to Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown with momentum and space. More importantly, a guy who can give the Celtics some actual NBA level transition offense, which was sorely lacking in the finals. According to Synergy's next gen stats, the Celtics were 27th in the association in transition scoring efficiency last season. Brogdon, he was just behind Chris Paul for 10th in transition assist to turnover ratio. Brogdon also has the handle and size to control driving angles and make defenders reach in on him and then force those defenders to reach over him and foul him when he gets to the rim. He's going to help bridge that gap of possessions that are not all out fast breaks off steals or walking into half court sets. The Celtics were at their best when they got straight into early transition offense off of rebounds and even made baskets. And that's a big part of Brogdon's skill sets. But he's also solid in half court offensive possessions. He ranked 11th out of the 75 players who ran at least 400 pick and rolls last season in points per possession created, according to Synergy. Boston had 5 players on that list, but only Smart and Dennis Schrader ranked as high as the 20s. Brogdon hardly turns the ball over. He was 7th in turnover percentage in that group between Chris Paul and Devin Booker, and he takes smart shots and he gets to the line. So even if you're not a huge Brogdon fan, I think Boston overpaid to get him at $67 million over the next 3 years. To me, this was a no-brainer move for the Celtics. All they gave up was Daniel Theis, Aaron Nesmith, Nick Stauskas, Malik Fitz, Juwan Morgan, and their 2023 first rounder. No one in their core moving forward, nor any of the young players they're high on for the future. Smart can talk all he wants about how he led the Celtics to the finals, but Boston absolutely needed more of a playmaker at the point. Brogdon immediately slides into the starting point guard slot. You can move Smart over to the 2, and Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum are your forwards. And in this positionless NBA we're in, it doesn't matter if neither one of those guys is what you may call a traditional power forward. You got Robert Williams III at center, and now you have a bench. It's Derek White, Al Horford, Grant Williams, along with recent addition Danilo Gallinari, and don't sleep on that pickup either. And if they can get quality minutes in the regular season from a guy like Peyton Pritchard, you got a 9 to 10 deep rotation that is now vastly improved. Brogdon averaged 19 points, 5 boards, and almost 6 assists last season. Yeah, he only played 36 games due to a right Achilles injury, and injuries have followed him throughout his career. He hasn't played more than 70 games since his 27 Rookie of the Year season, missing 133 games over 5 years. But if he can stay on the court, his ball handling, playmaking, shooting will all make a difference for Boston. He did struggle beyond the arc in 2 of his 3 seasons in Indiana, 32.6% in 1920 on 4.3 attempts a game, 31.2% this season on a little over 5 attempts per game. But overall for his career, he's at 37.6 on 4.2 attempts per game, and he managed to average 6 assists a game in his time in Indiana, despite playing an offense that predominantly ran through a big guy in Domantas Sabonis. He's tough. 6'5" guard. He can provide all of that and he fits really nicely into Boston's defensive identity. And Brogdon's ability on that side of the ball is only going to be enhanced in the type of system that head coach Ime Udoka runs, which was tops in the NBA for most of the season. According to a piece in The Athletic, when Brogdon was watching the Celtics offense struggle against the Warriors defense in the finals, he knew exactly where he could help. He saw those situations when Boston couldn't get into an action or even get the ball to Tatum and Brown with a chance to make a play. He feels these are the exact moments where he's at his best. And here's his quote. If I came there, I would give them a steady presence and a calm ball handler and facilitator, getting guys like Brown and Tatum easy shots. Just slowing the game down in those moments when we need to get a good shot. Eastern Conference champs just got a whole lot better, gents.
Yes, they did. And I do think they're going to be the favorites going in. All right, quickly. Supermax is the name of the game. And even if you just look at in Supermax, the names of the people who got extensions this offseason is ridiculous. Now, all of these deals are extensions. None of them are free agency moves. They all re-signed. But some of the numbers that I've seen are ridiculous. I'll get to Supermax in a second. Lou Dort is a very good Thunder shooting guard, but he is now a 5-year, $87.5 million.
Not worth it.
Players. Anthony Simons had a very good year, but now he is 4 years, $100 million. Darius Garland just got a supermax of 5 years, $193 million, and that could be a full rookie max extension with rewards and milestones of $231 million. Zion Williamson has played maybe as many games as a lot of people who have watched the NBA. It's not a lot, but because of his value, 5 years, $193 million could go to $231. John Morant deserves it. 5 years, $193 million could go to $231. Zach LaVine has won 1 playoff game in his entire career. 5 years, $215 million. Karl Anthony Towns has won 2 playoff games his entire career. 4 years, $224 million. Devin Booker, 4 years, $224 million. I want to get to number 2 in the list in a second, but Nikola Jokic is 5 years, $270 million, and that man deserves every bank that he can 100%. Ever rob. Bradley Beal. The only other person with a $250 million contract in NBA history. The man who also is a player empowerment guy who will obviously request a trade from the Wizards at the first moment he possibly can, and is not even close to a franchise player in any way, shape, or form.
But the Wizards gave him a no-trade clause.
Yes, the only no trade clause in the entire NBA is Bradley Beal's. 5 years, $251 million. Some of the numbers are insane.
Rabbi, you forgot about
worth market value, and the other category is Bradley Beal.
You forgot about Damian Lillard, who just got an extension as well.
Damian Lillard got one today. That's right. I believe 2 years, and James Harden has reportedly agreed to a 2-year. With the player
I got to tell you, Lillard is one of those guys. Lillard's one of those all-time guys. You know, whatever Portland needs to pay him to make him happy, I don't have an issue with that. I got to tell you, Harden pulled a Tom Brady. He took a $15 million pay cut to re-sign with the Sixers over for 2 years at about 32 million, so that they could create cap space, so that they could bring in his old pals from Houston and, Daniel House and PJ Tucker, and still give the Sixers some cap room to potentially bring in another player if they need to fill out that roster to give them more of the 3-and-D guys they need. So props to Harden for doing that.
He wants to make this work. He wants to make this work. Yeah, I think he always wanted to be in Philadelphia to begin.
And I got to tell you, all of the crap that I have given Harden for, throughout his career, that, what I've perceived to be the same type of things that I just described to KD about being selfish, about being egotistical, about, being a prima donna. Yeah, I got to give him props for this one. He said that, even though he didn't opt in, he said, I am not going anywhere. I want to stay here. I want to do whatever it takes to allow this team to fit more pieces around me and Joel and Tyrese to give us a shot. I want to win a title here. James, respect. You said, you lived up to your word. Hopefully, now, you got to come back in shape, and he's already well into his offseason program. He's not.
You see the video where Sam Cassell working out
He's been working out with Maxey and Cassell. He's gotten into his offseason program earlier than he ever has. He wants to come back in the best shape of his life, and he really wants to put his the money where his mouth is. So I got to give him props. James, look, you laid it out there. You did the right thing. Now you got to back it up.
Hey, look, I like this. I like this. If you're Bradley Beal, who needs championship rings? Secure a bag. Stay home. Get the no trade clause. Hey, look, why be Kevin Durant and take the easy way out and just stay where you can just stay on one team and struggle for the next 5 years of your career and still make over $200 million? That's bad for Bradley Beal.
Look, by all accounts, it's a move that makes no sense by Tommy Shepard, the GM of the Wizards. But Beal has, look, it kind of makes you believe Beal when he says that, he really likes the organization. He likes the town. He wants to be in this one city. This is where he wants to be for his career. And if he's,
does he know? That's going to be another topic for another time.
I think he's crazy, because I don't think the Wizards are going to get, playoff contender level anytime soon. But, hey, if this is where he wants to be and he's going to get paid to stay there.
Look, you know what? I'm making jokes about it, but I give Bradley Beal credit, because we are in an age where players get criticized for ring chasing and jumping from team to team. He's actually wanted to stay on one team for the rest of his career. But because the Wizards are not good, we're kind of beating them up for it. But I give him a little credit. He wants to stay on one team. He wants to be committed. He loves being in DC. He loves the organization. So I tip my hat to him. And he, he got his money. He's getting the money. He gets to stay where he is his whole career. Once upon a time, he was kind of the side guy to John Wall. Now he is the franchise player. So hey, I give him this. I give him this due.
It feels weird to us, Rabbi, because it's such an outlier, in terms of how stars have been handling their situations of late. So
you give me 5 years for $250 million. I'll Mississippi, for God's sakes. All right. And I'll play for whatever team that they want. 5 years, give me that money. Do whatever you can give for me. All right. So, guys, we're about to go, but I want to just mention a few things first. This, when Jay always says craziest tournament ever, he is referring to the NCAA tournament. It's an amazing event, but I have a nominee for you. Wimbledon, craziest tournament ever. Let me explain to you just what's happened before I go to my real final point. Serena Williams, one of the greatest players of all time, played a 3-set classic against a woman from France named Harmony Tan. And Serena lost. She's a person who no one ever thought should be in the tournament. A lot of people, because she's 40 and she got a wild card entry. But she played her heart out, and Harmony Tan, of course, ended up going to the round of 16. Andy Murray and John Isner played a classic match, which Isner won the big match on center court against Britain's favorite son. And just like John Isner does in every third round of every major, he lost immediately afterwards. Then you have Iga Swiatek. If you don't know who she is by far the best women's tennis player in the world right now, easily ranked number 1, had a 37-match winning streak, and it ended in the third round after losing to the 37th ranked player in the world, Alizé Cornet. Americans did very well, although none of them ended up reaching the semifinals. Amanda Asimova beat Coco Gauff in the third round and got her way over to the quarterfinals, where she would eventually lose to Simona Halep. Brandon Nakashima ended up becoming one of the better names in this tournament. He was like 120th ranked. Francis Tiafoe and then Taylor Fritz did pretty damn well too. Fritz lost in a quarterfinal to Rafael Nadal. It was a great match and ended up going into a 5th set tiebreak, but Nadal gutted it out. And then the day before that, Novak Djokovic came back from 0-2 down against 10th ranked Jannik Sinner. That being said, Rafael Nadal unfortunately had to withdraw from Wimbledon due to injury, which was kind of sad, but sad for many different reasons, because Djokovic won his match yesterday against Cameron Norrie to make it to the final, but facing Djokovic in the Wimbledon final will be a guy by the name of Nick Kyrgios. Nick Kyrgios is, if you don't know who he is a guy who has been one of the weirdest arcs in tennis history. He had some of the biggest potential of to be one of the greatest players, and then at the age of 20 in 2014, eliminated Rafael Nadal, upsetting him, who Nadal was the second ranked player in the world. Kyrgios then, if you want to know where this is going, 5 years later, played Nadal again in the second round. And then in the interview this week, that Kyrgios lost, in an interview this week said, I pretty much gave up after that since I was at the pub until 4 a.m. the night before drinking. Nick Kyrgios is a guy who has made every headline known to mankind. He is almost the John McEnroe-like new bad boy of tennis in many different ways, but he never had his potential reached. And now, because of the Nadal injury, he made his first semifinal and then made his first final immediately right after. But then let's just go through the Nick Kyrgios book this Wimbledon. He's always been a bad boy and had multiple outbursts in his third round match against Stefanos Tsitsipas, where he accused him of constant bullying. And Tsitsipas said, it probably was a bully in himself, but I don't like bullies. The two pretty much hated each other throughout the match. Obviously, Kyrgios won. Tsitsipas, the 4th ranked player in the world, ended up losing. Kyrgios also, immediately after, I believe, his quarterfinal match, changed his white hat immediately to a Nike hat and basically criticized the All England club's policy of actually, having all white down there. Mm-hmm. But and the man has also, by the way, got fined $10,000 in the first round after spitting at a ref. But then, of course, there's not all fun and games. Kyrgios, in just this week, was charged with assault of his current girlfriend right now, actually his ex-girlfriend, which happened in Australia in December of 2021. Kyrgios has said he has taken this seriously, but when leaving the practice courts during a quarterfinal match said, I feel like I'm in the last dance. Yeah, not the greatest words to say there, Nick. Nick has constantly been a person who has never liked media, has always had outrageous tirades against it, and did it again when he told off a reporter during, I believe, after his quarterfinal victory. So this is where it's come down to. Nick Kyrgios is a crazy, crazy guy who is finally, right now he's the 40th ranked player in the world, but he has a chance to win at the All England Club tomorrow. And even though he is a serial abuser, even though he's done all of these crazy things, almost everyone is still rooting for him because he's going up against Novak Djokovic, a man who has never met a vaccine that he actually likes and is luckily going into a place where, I don't know, there's actually going to be competition out there. Also, fun story, after all of the talk about banning Russian players, I didn't even mention that Russian-born players were banned from this Wimbledon because she didn't represent Russia. And now I'm talking about Russian represented players, because she didn't even represent Russia, a Russian-born player by the name of Elena Rybakina just won the women's championship. And that just shows you right now, the fortnight of Wimbledon can always be a little crazier than you ever could imagine. Best tournament, craziest tournament ever. All right, guys.
Wow.
That about does it. For Jay Kaplan and Anthony Strait, I am just a humble man named Stephen Rabinowitz. We'll be back in just a few weeks for I can't believe I'm saying this, NFL training camp edition of On the Sports Lines. They're going soon. Do you know the social media of this show? Let us remind you. YouTube.com/On the Sports Lines on demand for this show or any of the ones you might have missed. If you're watching us live on Facebook.com/On the Sports Lines, you can get this and other takes, usually said by Jay Kaplan, on our Facebook page. And speaking of,
our Twitter handle is at ONTH Sports Lines, where you will find link to this show, as well as those interesting tidbits the Rabbi mentioned that we feel are worth your while to check out.
All right, we will see you next week, and my voice will probably be a little more back to my normal self at that point. Good afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend from On the Sports.
Good night. Goodbye, everybody.